Well, thanks so much for the question. Thanks for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to be here with my fellow panelists, and especially to be sitting next to Steve Moore. True fact, Steve Moore and I are often mistaken for one another at events, which I like to think is not just because we both write for boring publications, but that Steve is a real handsome devil. Steve, he mentioned those first 2 years of the Obama administration. When anyone invokes those nightmare years, I think of the old Winston Churchill story about how when he was in the men's room off the House of Parliament, and Clement Attlee comes up to take a leak next to him, and Churchill kind of scoots off as far off as he can, and Attlee is kind of razzing him, saying, "Oh, Winston, you're feeling awfully modest today, aren't you?" And he said, "No, Clement, I just know that if you ever see something large and well-functioning, you want to nationalize it." And that's how the first 2 years went. And Jonathan, you're right. Democrats thought this was a very clever idea, and Republicans would never go along with it because they feared the defense cuts, and it was a great act of jiu-jitsu, partly prompted by Steve, who's a great advocate, just to say, no, we'll take these cuts because these are the only cuts we can get. And Steve's absolutely right. It's important to protect them. I would be willing to countenance some sort of trade of the sort that Paul Ryan is talking about, if you can relax them somewhat and get mandatory savings out of entitlement programs. Probably nothing larger, just sort of cats and dogs. I would take that trade. I don't know whether, I kind of doubt it. I sort of doubt it. So I think at the end of the day, you just bank them and move on. And look, I'm usually not much of an optimist. I like to say I'm an optimist in the sense of the old Polish story about the pessimist who says things can't get worse, and the optimist says, "Oh yes, they can." But the sequester means it's like our version of the fiscal cliff. We just have to do nothing, and we win on the sequester because the cuts happen no matter what. And the other cause of my optimism is that Healthcare.Gov is the best educator about the limits of government action since the days of Milton Friedman and Bill Buckley.